Hello and welcome to the Escape Podcast, your source for all good things in universe and movies. I'm Dave.
And I'm Dave. Join us as we explore the vast reaches of science fiction, fantasy, action, and adventure and beyond.
And I'm Dave, and with me, as always, is my good friend and the only other survivor of the USS Klopik, Dave.
Hello! I see we have it! La la la, la la la!
And we're here to you today.
All right.
Okay, I'm really Dave. I was not expecting everyone else to be Dave.
These are the Daves I know.
Yeah, this is episode 17, and today we are doing the Burbs!
All right.
Yes, we are.
It was quite a feat to get this to happen.
Well, you know, we are a league of extraordinary gentlemen, and
When worlds collide.
when extraordinary gentlemen come together, it's not easy to make it happen.
Yeah,
That
there's
is
four
true.
of us this time. It's an experience for sure. An
Yeah.
experiment.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
All right, so what's going on in the world of movie news?
Well, I think that the biggest news is that, me and Josh don't have anything to add, but Brandon and Dave have both seen some movies recently, and I think you guys are going to tell us a little bit about them without spoiling them.
Okay, well, yesterday I saw Kong, finally. I've been waiting for Kong Skull Island for a while, since I found out about it last year. Yeah, I went to see it yesterday. It's 2 hours long. It didn't feel too long. It felt pretty good. I liked the movie. It takes place in the 70s. Starts off during World War II. It shows you a little scene with John C. Reilly's character. And then you get in the 70s, John Goodman gets some people to go to like this newly discovered island. And they discovered it through the use of satellites, which is kind of new technology for the time. And nobody else has been there yet, and he wants to get there first. He thinks there's monsters on the island. And he wants to get there before the Russians discover it, because they have satellites too. And the thing about the island is it's always surrounded by the storm system. So he gets everybody to go there. The movie was good. It was fun. It had the CG I thought was actually pretty good. Like all the special effects in the movie were really good. They had a budget of about $180 million, and it shows. I was worried that John C. Reilly's part was going to be a little too goofy, and he was super goofy, but it actually fit. He definitely made the audience that I saw it with laugh out loud a few times. Let's see what else. There were some really stupid parts, but they were forgivable. It's kind of like, I don't know how you feel about Jurassic Park 3, but there's a scene that kind of reminded me of, you remember when the dinosaur, the Spinosaurus, had swallowed the cell phone?
Yes.
And they go up to the fence, and they're trying to get through the fence, and they hear the phone ringing.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, it's not that bad when you're watching it, but if you want to stop and think about it, it's like, one, how would they hear the cell phone? The dinosaur is far away, and it's like the cell phone's in his belly. Would it even be able to receive a call? Is it still getting a signal? If like you want to pick it apart, you can.
Well, I think it was a satellite phone too.
Yeah, but would it still get the signal through the dinosaur?
I don't know.
Yeah, see, that's what I don't know either. If you want to stop and think about it, then it's dumb. But when you're watching it, you can just kind of turn your brain off and ignore it. And this movie had a few of those moments, but it wasn't bad. I'd give it like a C+ right now.
Okay.
I'd have to think about it more, but I'd definitely suggest it if anybody wants to look for a fun movie.
Okay.
You know, I was never a big fan of the King Kong franchise. I barely had any interest in seeing the 2005 movie.
Mhm.
And before that, I had never really seen any of the other movies. I know there's been a few, right?
3 total. Well, 4 now, including
Well,
this one.
There's
Not
been a
including
bunch.
King Kong vs. Godzilla, Mighty Joe Young, the other Mighty
Yeah.
Joe Young, King Kong Lives.
Yeah, something about this one is I wouldn't expect it. Like anybody that wants to see kind of like a more deeper story like the other ones were, like out of the 4 main Kong movies, this one is the most like dumbed down action version.
Okay.
It's PG-13. There was a F-bomb in it, which I thought was kind of funny. It was actually a really good one though. It cracked me up when it happened. And Josh, you're not going to like this. Sorry, but there's not a whole lot of dinosaurs in it, so don't expect to see too many of them.
Just right there alone, you're telling me though that there are dinosaurs in it. So
That's all I'll say about it.
okay.
But yeah, I'd suggest it. Anybody that wants to go see a fun movie, go check it out. Especially because I want the movie to do well and have a bunch of sequels.
Yeah, see, me having grown up on King Kong, I saw this trailer and it really didn't do anything for me. It didn't like make me not want to see it, but it didn't make me really want to see it. And I almost feel about the King Kong movies almost how I feel about Star Trek. Probably second to Star Trek, like in terms of when, how upset I was in 2009 when they, in my opinion, messed up Star Trek. That's how I would kind of feel a little bit about if they messed this one up. Because I do feel almost like I go way back with the King Kong franchise.
Yeah, well, it's definitely not the same as the other ones. Like the other ones have deeper stories, but in a way that's kind of a good thing because this is like the fourth main Kong movie, and you're just going to do the same thing every time.
Yeah.
So we've seen like the deeper side of Kong. Now this one's like the fun, action, silly one, and they're setting up for the Godzilla universe too.
Yeah.
So it's pretty exciting. I enjoyed it. There's some great shots, especially when Kong is standing like with the sunset behind him. It looks great.
Okay. Dave?
Yes, I'm here.
But I mean, you saw the movie, right?
No, I haven't seen Kong.
Oh, I thought you said you saw it.
No, I believe Dave said he saw Logan.
Oh, I'm sorry. My bad.
Yes,
What'd
I
you think
did
of
see Logan. Logan was, I just have nothing bad to say about it. It was just a great experience. And I have been following the X-Men movies. The X-Men movies are very close to my heart. And the this was a really good way to wrap up, some things. I don't really know how to talk about this because I don't want to spoil anything, but
well, they keep saying that it's the Hugh Jackman's like the last time he's going to be playing Wolverine. So
yeah,
I saw it too, and I felt like kind of like they really made it feel like a goodbye to him as an actor.
Yeah, they did. And my thing is, I know that at some point they're going to reboot the X-Men movies, and we're going to get all these new characters, well, all the same characters being played by all new actors. And
haven't they kind of already done that?
Well, no, they've done like prequels. And
I know, but every movie they do, the timeline doesn't match up. It's almost like different mirror universes within the franchise, really, if you think about it.
I don't think that's an official. I think that they're all supposed to be in the same timeline. There's just some.
But they can't be.
Well, I'm saying there's continuity errors that were made.
Right, which makes some people think it's more about. It's almost like multiple universes.
I could see why some people would think that, but I don't think that's the way it's supposed to be.
I think what they were going for was when they did Days of Future Past, they were trying to erase like the first Wolverine movie and the third X-Men movie.
Yes.
While trying to keep it kind of continuous at the same time, but like they keep making mistakes throughout the whole
soft
series.
reboot.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it didn't really reboot because I don't know. I mean, they're still going to have to reboot for real when they get all these new actors to fill in these roles, because you can't have the classic X-Men lineup anymore with, like Wolverine and Jean Grey and Cyclops and, Gambit and all these guys and like Nightcrawler. You can't have them all together anymore because
I think they could just retire the character. I know they won't, but they should.
Well, no, it's retire. I mean, you can't retire a main character of a franchise.
Sure you can. There's a million of these characters. Like shine a light on a different guy. There's millions of these characters.
Yeah, but those characters are not as main and as center stage as.
Yeah, but Wolverine wasn't supposed to be a main character when they first did him.
I think the cast that they have now for like the cast they have for Apocalypse is the one they kind of want to stick with for a while now. They will probably eventually have to find a new Wolverine, but I don't know if they'll even bother for any amount of time.
Yeah.
They probably won't need the characters much anymore.
What I'm saying is some point in the future, they're going to have to reboot this whole thing to get Wolverine alongside with Cyclops and Jean Grey and all these guys, because they're all supposed to be, like on the same playing field. There's not one that's supposed to, like, if they did that now, it would be like Wolverine being played by, like 50-something-year-old Hugh Jackman alongside Cyclops, who's being played by some 20-something-year-old.
Right, but I'm saying, like, why not exercise those other muscles they have? They have tons of characters, and you're just going to keep doing the same characters over and over again. Let's look at some other characters and start developing them.
That's a good idea, but what that is doing is it asks the viewer to focus on a character that isn't as mainstream. Like there
right,
are
I get all that, but I'm saying, are we so? Do we have to keep doing the same things? Like, can we not expand ourselves a little bit more? I mean, there might be a really cool character that they could develop that might, dare I say, beat Wolverine in terms of popularity. But if they never develop that character, we'll never know.
Right, I see what you're saying.
One of the things that they've been doing a lot in those movies that annoys me is just throwing characters in all over the place. There's too many of them. One thing I liked about Logan was that it kept the characters down to like a handful. Like there were only about 4 or 5 main characters in the movie, as opposed to just throwing in mutants left and right that we don't know who they are or what they do.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Logan did a good job of keeping things simple, yet at the same time, you knew that it was in a shared universe, so to speak. And
it was a smaller movie too. Like it wasn't a world-ending scenario. It was just the story of these characters.
Right. And now I will say that I feel like Days of Future Past has probably so far been my favorite X-Men movie so far. And I'm kind of wondering, like, you know, so they had that happy ending at Days of Future Past where he's reunited with all his formerly dead friends, and then suddenly you go from, you know, that to, you know, years later at the beginning of what we see between Logan and Professor Xavier in that situation. Like, I'm wondering how they got from that to that. But I mean, I know they kind of talk about it slightly, but I feel like I really want to know more about the events.
I think I know what you're talking about. Like at the end of Days of Future Past, Professor X is explaining like how the timeline has changed to Logan in the present.
Yeah, like he talks about Professor Xavier says something to the effect of, yeah, the timeline's different than the one you remember, and then Logan says, yeah, you're gonna have to fill me in on what things have changed because I remember things differently. And
yeah, based on that ending,
they never go into detail though.
I was kind of expecting Apocalypse to be Professor X telling that story of Apocalypse to Wolverine as part of catching him up, but they didn't do that.
Also, I will say that I read the book Old Man Logan that this movie is based off of, and I really liked some of the parallels. I knew that it would be way different than the book because 3/4 of the characters that appear in the book I would not expect to have appeared in this movie.
Right, like they can't have the Hulk.
Right, or they can't have any Avengers or, you know, any of the Spider-Man characters or like, I mean, so yeah, there were some things like in the book. There's at one point you see Wolverine fights Red Skull and he gets on Iron Man's armor to help him do it, and it's a really cool moment in the book. But those are things that I just knew wouldn't happen in the movie. So
yeah, it was like based on the idea of an Old Man Logan, not exactly the novel.
It's an adaptation.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's an adaptation of that story using what we have to work with.
So if you had to give it a letter grade, what would you give it?
I'm gonna say A.
Okay.
Yeah,
I thought it was very good as well. There were only 2 things that bothered me, but they were kind of nitpicks. And from talking to other people that have seen it, they've noticed at least one of the things that I did. I talked to somebody that noticed a couple other things that didn't make sense, but you know, that's just thinking too hard into it.
I see.
But yeah, it was really good. It had a kind of a dark tone, which is the way things are now. But
I forgot there was a scene in Apocalypse that kind of set up this Logan movie. In the post-credits scene of X-Men Apocalypse, did you see that?
I don't remember. I don't remember the post-credit scene.
There was a post-credit scene where a bunch of guys...
Oh, yes. Okay. Now I got it. Yeah.
You remember now?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I thought that was going to show up, and it did. I was expecting more out of that. That was one of my things that I was a little disappointed in, is that there could have been more to that, but there wasn't.
I see.
I'll have to explain that part later because it's a little spoilery.
Yeah, it's I'm glad you stopped me because I almost jumped on that and started talking about it.
Yeah.
I appreciate that, Brandon. Thank you.
Yeah.
Logan is a movie that I really want to see because I really like the X-Men franchise as well. And, I mean, everyone would say it now, but I have to agree that Hugh Jackman as Logan / Wolverine is just incredible. It's hard to ever imagine somebody else having that role, albeit somebody else eventually will have that role. There's no doubt about that in my mind.
I'm not too worried about that. Like, it's hard to imagine now, but like James Bond, you look at that. Like, how many times have they switched James Bonds? And there's always people complaining when they pick up the actor, but then afterwards, usually they've all done a pretty good job.
Yeah. So I'm looking forward to that, because I love these characters, and the X-Men are generally all around the same age, and so I'm looking. That was the beauty of the first movie, is that you had the classic X-Men lineup, and they're all in this like same age group, and they're all alongside each other.
One thing about
Uh,
Logan and Deadpool is those two movies kind of give me a little bit more hope for the X-Men franchise and Fox in general, because they've done such a good job with those two movies that
Yeah.
I really felt like the X-Men movies, for me anyway, were kind of like slipping to where they're just getting too dumb, or I couldn't enjoy them anymore. But I'm thinking that, hopefully the next one is, if Logan's any sign, the next one will be a lot better.
Yeah, for sure. And on a personal note, I will say that I have this memory of when I was about maybe 10-ish years old. So this was about 1994, and my brothers and I were in a car, and we were going on a family vacation out west, and we were talking in the car like we were big fans of the animated X-Men series that came on Saturday mornings, and we were talking about, man, how cool it would be if they ever made a live action X-Men movie. And we were talking about who all the people would be that we would cast in all the different roles. And I don't remember anything about what characters for actors we chose, but I do remember the one thing we did say in 1994, and that was how cool it would be to see that bald dude from Next Generation cast as Professor Xavier. And 6 years later, bam, it happened, and I was like, oh my gosh, I remember having this conversation. So going to see Logan was like kind of like the culmination of that memory. Like it was like the icing on the cake. Like I remember being a 10-year-old talking about that, and then now I'm a 30-something-year-old seeing Patrick Stewart still play him just the way I predicted when I was a kid.
Would you say that Patrick Stewart's performance as Professor X was very engaging?
I would say, yeah. I mean, I have no complaints.
That was the only pun I could think of.
Oh, I get it. I'm picking up what you're putting down. Number one,
Yeah.
Engaging.
Sorry.
I think maybe it's time to go to the cul-de-sac.
Okay. Well, today's episode is, we're finally getting to it, the 1963 classic by Alfred Hitchcock, The Birds.
No, not the birds. The Burbs.
The Burbs. Oh, crap. Well, it's a good thing I didn't watch The Birds, and I watched The Burbs by mistake. Got trivia for us, Josh?
Yeah. So, okay. Yeah. The Burbs from 1989. It has a 48% Rotten Tomatoes. It was directed by Joe Dante. He is responsible for Gremlins 1 and 2, segment 3 of the Twilight Zone movie, Inner Space, The Howling, Small Soldiers. It stars Tom Hanks, and if you don't know who Tom Hanks is, I don't know what to say. As Ray Peterson, some of his big ones, obviously Saving Private Ryan, Forrest Gump, Toy Story, etc. Bruce Dern as Mark Rumsfeld. He's big from Nebraska, The Hateful Eight, and Django. Rick Ducommun as Art Weingartner. He was in Groundhog Day, Die Hard, The Hunt for Red October. We also have Carrie Fisher, Corey Feldman, Harry Gibson, and Brother Theodore.
Yes, Brother Theodore. Quite the name for anybody.
Yes. All right. So trivia. Walter's dog Queenie is actually the same dog from Silence of the Lambs.
Did not know that.
Yeah.
I don't remember a
Really?
dog
I
in
did
that
not
movie.
know that.
Yeah. At the time the movie was being filmed, Corey Feldman and Michael Jackson were pretty good friends. And while Michael was on the set, his chimpanzee Bubbles came along with them, and they would put Bubbles in Corey Feldman's trailer. And I guess what they would do is between takes, Corey would go to his trailer and find that the chimpanzee had pooped and spread it everywhere. And it became such a repeated problem that eventually the director had to ban Bubbles from the set.
Oh, that's crappy.
Yeah. Tom Hanks improvised the scene where he picks up the gurney and throws it into the back of the ambulance himself. Screenwriter Dana Olson used his inspiration from his own hometown neighborhood where there was a house similar to that of the Klopex. The film was shot in sequence and was filmed during the writer's strike of '88. Dana Olson, the writer who appeared in the film as a cop actually toward the end, he was not allowed to update any dialogue as they sometimes do. So the director actually encouraged them to do a lot of ad-libbing on the spot kind of thing. One of the lines that was ad-libbed was the "Satan is good, Satan is our pal" dialogue. And also when Mark Rumsfeld rips off the Klopex wallpaper was all improvised. The Klopex named their dog Landru, which some people say might be after Harry Landru, a notorious French serial killer. Before all the neighbors go to the house for the chat, Carrie Fisher says the line, "Before someone falls off a roof or sets himself on fire," both which happen. Mark Rumsfeld falls off his roof and Ray basically gets set on fire.
That was something that Brandon noticed when we watched The Burbs a couple weeks ago.
Yeah. The street they live on is Mayfield Place, and Mayfield was the town where the Cleavers live in Leave It to Beaver. And the movie Leave It to Beaver was shot on the same lot. This was the last appearance of Brother Theodore. In the scene where at the Klopek's house where Bruce Dern is fascinated with one of Dr. Klopek's paintings turning upside down, the painting appeared in the opening sequence of Rod Sterling's Night Gallery. There is some speculation about what state the movie takes place in. Some say it looks like they're panning down to Iowa in the opening sequence, but if you pay attention to the garbage truck's license plate, you can see it says Illinois.
I was wondering that too. That would have been one of my guesses.
The movie opened at #1 spot in the U.S. It grossed around $11 million in its opening weekend, and the movie made about $36 or $7 million worldwide. There's a shadow of a noose on the wall over Uncle Ruben's right shoulder when the neighbors open the sliding door to the kitchen for the first time. Corey Feldman, or Ricky Butler's house, is the house formerly used in the Munsters TV show, and it was shown the least because they thought it might be too recognizable because it had been barely changed.
His house was the Munster house?
His house was the Munsters house, yes. And that's why
that house was also in a movie with Don Knotts called The Ghost and Mr. Chicken.
Okay. When Vince, the Peterson dog, is bringing the femur bone to Art and Ray, you can apparently hear the dog trainer off camera whistle to command the dog to come over, which I didn't notice that. In Ray and Carol's kitchen during the breakfast scene at the beginning, there's a box of Gremlins cereal. Joe Dante directed Gremlins, as I already said. Corey Feldman, the garbage man Vic, and the other garbage man Cardo also were in the Gremlins movies. And the original script he had intended for Dr. Klobek to kill Ray Peterson. However, once Tom Hanks was cast in the role, the studio didn't want the audience to witness his death on screen, so the ending was reworked. There were several alternate endings in the film which show other bones discovered in the Klopek trunk, including dead cheerleaders and the garbage men seen earlier in the film.
Huh.
Fascinating.
Me and John watched I Got It on Blu-ray recently, and there is one alternate ending on it, but it wasn't really all that drastically different from the one in the theatrical release. I didn't notice any bones with cheerleader outfits on them or anything like that.
Well, I guess they said that was it was in the script, but it didn't make it.
Okay.
Yeah, the DVD I have does have an alternate ending, but I'm trying to remember exactly what happens in the alternate ending. I remember it wasn't as climactic.
Right. Yeah, this one, we probably saw the same one. It wasn't as good, but it touched on a lot of the same notes. I think instead of the ambulance driving away while the doctor's trying to get Tom Hanks, the way the doctor just crawls in and starts trying to get Tom Hanks while the ambulance is still, and then Art opens up the back of it to apologize to Tom Hanks, and that's how they discover him, and everybody just sees him, and he kind of just smiles.
Gotcha.
That was the biggest difference that I remember.
Okay. So this is a movie that I was introduced to by Dave, and then I took it to John.
Yes.
Right, John? I don't think you had ever seen it before.
Very true. Yep. Nope.
All right, so Dave knew of it, got it to Josh. Josh got it from Dave and gave it to John. I got it from my aunt, showed it to me. I spent the night at my aunt's house, and her grandson, one of my cousins, was there, and it was one of his favorite movies. So she put it on for us, and I had never seen or heard of it before, but I loved it. So that was my introduction to it.
Well, you may not know this, but John actually met your aunt at the local Farmer Jack by our house, and I think he introduced her to it by talking about it, right, John?
That's absolutely true. Yes.
Aunt Shirley, right?
Sherry.
Sherry, yeah, Aunt Sherry. Right, yeah. So it's all connected.
Okay. That story almost has a bit of truth to it.
So who wants to start off?
Well, let's have Dave start off since he introduced it to you guys.
Very well. Dave, take it away.
What do you want me to do?
Your thoughts, your notes, your points you want to talk about?
Oh, right. Okay. So, yeah,
You didn't see it in the theater, right? How did you first see it?
No, I did not see it in the theater. I saw it on a tape that it was kind of this it's really strange. It became like this weird Saturday morning ritual at my house to watch this movie at least once or twice a month on Saturday mornings, which is so funny because the movie begins in a very similar kind of scenario setting, I guess you could say, that you would find typically going on at my house Saturday mornings when I was a kid growing up. Like people still like kind of being lazy, sitting around the house in their like PJs or, eating breakfast. But like in the scene where you have Art just like eating his food forever and ever at the house, and he's like still chewing food even when they go outside, and he's still chewing like bacon or something when they're walking up to the house for the first time. And
Okay, I have to interrupt. Did you realize that in the scene where she takes the dog's food dish and she puts dog food in it, and she's walking past him, he doesn't realize that it's a dog food dish. He just sees it as something going by, and you see him grab a handful of dog food and eat it.
I never noticed that.
Yeah. Okay, I'm sorry, I interrupted.
Grabbing food, but I didn't realize it was dog food.
Yeah, and he may, if you watch it again, after he grabs it, he makes this face like, "What is this disgusting thing I just ate?" Yeah, because he was just literally, he grabs ribs, a pineapple, and something else, and everything he just sees. You're gonna finish your eggs, and then she fills up the dog dish, and as she's walking by, he just sees something, he grabs it, and he makes this face of disgust. But I'm sorry, Dave, I interrupted. Continue, Dave.
No, that's funny. That's fine. I just think of those because when my family, we would always have like kind of a bigger Saturday morning breakfast, and so as a result, it looked a lot like the scene you see in that movie where everyone's just hanging around the house eating breakfast in the morning. It was always kind of weird to watch that scene in the movie when that was like the exact same thing happening while we were watching it at my house.
I've heard it described as first, like one of the earliest movies to do, I don't know how accurate this is, but first world problems or a first world point of view.
That's funny.
I can see that.
Joe Dante and Steven Spielberg, they've spent some time together, and I think both of them are able to do like that thing where, like if I don't know if you guys have seen Close Encounters of the Third Kind, but they're very good at creating like this family atmosphere where like everybody's kind of talking and there's kind of a little bit of chaos in the house. You also notice it a little bit in Poltergeist, just like where people are talking over each other and everybody's doing their own thing in the house, even though they're all together. And it's like a sense of realism that way. I think it's not just people taking turns doing their lines.
I could see that a little bit in E.T. when they make him go out, like before he goes out to get the pizza or whatever.
Mm-hmm. One of the things I think of for the beginning of this movie, I kind of want to bring it up before we get too far into it, is just the opening with the Universal logo zooming in from like satellite view into the town. You kind of mentioned that during the trivia. But I was fascinated by that, and I was trying to figure out where the town is at. Well, I guess it's Chicago. But I'm always fascinated by that. I think it's really cool. And I always wonder how they did that. I'd have to go back and watch it again to see if it was all one shot or if it was edited.
It looks like one shot. I still am pretty impressed on how they managed to do that in 89 or, probably 88 when they were doing this. But
before computers were so big.
Yeah, exactly. I really don't understand how they did it because it literally zooms right to the street, and then once it goes down, then it pulls up to see the house.
Yeah, and it almost looks like it's going into a miniature town, but like if it's all one shot, it's the real town. So I don't know exactly how they were able to do that.
That reminds me of what happened when they show that intro sequence. It always made me think of the Beetlejuice opening sequence.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. I was going to say that.
But in the difference is in the Beetlejuice opening sequence, you can kind of tell where they make the shift from the real town to the model. Like it's like, I don't know, like it's just like a quick subtle fade of the camera. But and you can see a subtle change in lighting. But with this, it's nighttime, so it's a little more subtle than that. And I gotta say, it's pretty darn seamless. You can't really tell where it goes from, being special effects to just being footage of the town that you see up to the house.
Yeah, it looks really good.
So I thought it was pretty cool. Like you guys, the opening sequence zooming in. That was one of those things that I mean, nowadays it's pretty commonplace in a movie,
Mhm.
but back then it was something kind of special, and so I appreciate that for that time period, kind of being one of the first movies to do something like that.
Mhm. I wanted to mention the opening music in itself. I think it's actually the music that they're playing while you're zooming into the earth and then onto the street and then to their house. It's pretty interesting. I like it because it's kind of creepy. It has the right mood set to it. I don't know
Isn't
if
it
I'm-
Jerry Goldsmith, the conductor?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, because
Yes.
he did a lot of Star Trek, and he did what's the military movie Patton? I think he did
Patton,
Patton. And so there are actually there's some military music throwback when they show
Rumsfeld.
when they show Bruce Dern's character, yeah, Rumsfeld. They kind of have some of that trumpet kind of thing, and not only do they do that in Patton and in this movie The Burbs, but they also do that when they briefly do it in the scene in Star Trek II: The Wrath of Khan. They have a scene where Khan is talking about back on Earth, I was a prince, and he's like thinking back to that, and they do that subtly again.
It's too bad though that Jerry Goldsmith did not do the music for Star Trek 2 though.
I could have swore he did.
I'm pretty sure he didn't. He did the motion picture. I know he came back for the Final Frontier.
Well, in that case, please.
I think it was James Horner. I'm almost sure it was James Horner.
You're right. I'm wrong.
But I can totally see what you're saying. I agree when you were talking about it, that trumpet thing. I could see what you're saying.
Yes.
But yeah,
yes.
I'm pretty sure that's James Horner.
It's not as relevant of a point now though, because
that's okay. Well, we have to keep up the tradition that Brandon pointed out of pretty much always mentioning Star Trek in some capacity on every episode, no matter how unrelatable it is.
Wait, I'm pretty sure that was you and me, Josh, that started that tradition.
Well, Brandon pointed it out. It's like I noticed it, but then he pointed it out. I didn't say anything, but I noticed it. And then he pointed it out, and I was like, okay.
Yeah, I noticed it too when we first started doing this. I was like, yeah, we have a pretty heavy Star Trek focus.
Okay, I just kind of ninja'd it, look it up on Wikipedia. The music for Wrath of Khan is done by James Horner.
Yes, that is true.
Okay.
Well,
but anyway,
bring it back around here to the Burbs, that definitely was a variation of his previous work on Patton that played when Rumsfeld was on the screen. And Rumsfeld, I don't know if this was coincidence or what, but he does share a last name with former U.S. Secretary of Defense Donald Rumsfeld. So I wonder if they kind of did that on purpose to play up that military aspect.
Oh, I'm sure of it. I was thinking that when we were watching it too.
I never thought about that.
Yeah, I guess Joe Dante has like a history of using the same actors and basically sticking with the same crew for a lot of his movies. He uses Robert Picardo in a lot of stuff. Not all of it, but most of it. And then I forget the other actor's name, the other garbage man. What did you say his name was?
I know it's Vic in the movie itself. I can't remember what his real name is. I'll try to look it up real quick. But yeah, they were both in Gremlins 1 and 2. I know Picardo was in Inner Space as the cowboy.
Dick Miller. That's him.
Okay.
Yeah, Dick Miller's been in nearly everything that Joe Dante has done. So he sticks with the same people, and I believe he's probably used Jerry Goldsmith quite a few times. I did notice at the end of the movie, when I heard the score, it reminded me a lot of the Gremlins song, the Gremlins music. And that's when I looked it up to see if it was the same guy, and it was.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, but that's pretty common now. You see that a lot now. I mean, John Hughes had a big tendency to do that. We use a lot of the same actors over and over again. And I would almost credit John Hughes. He did you might say, the first multi-universe or expanded universe in his movies.
Oh, elaborate.
Well, if you watch Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, when Steve Martin is trying to beat Kevin Bacon for the cab, Kevin Bacon is actually supposed to be the same character as in She's Having a Baby, which is another John Hughes movie.
Oh, okay.
And then I believe there's a part where he's talking on the phone with his wife, and you're hearing the other end of a conversation that you end up seeing in another one of his movies. I want to say it was She's Having a Baby again. Basically, while someone else is having a phone call like around him, you're getting that end of it. that side of that phone call. But then when you see the other movie, you're seeing the other side of the phone call.
That's pretty funny.
Yeah.
There's certain directors that like to stick little Easter eggs in. One of them is Joe Dante. Another set of directors that like to use the same actors over and over again are the Coen brothers. They like to reuse people. And I was thinking earlier when we were talking about the opening when it zooms in, I think that's also how Burn After Reading starts, but I'd have to go back and double check.
Okay. I remember when that movie came out, but I never saw it.
It's a good one. What did you think of the Burbs when Dave showed it to you?
I liked it. I remember liking it pretty much right off the bat, and I think the reason I liked it was because it was so relatable to me.
Like the suburban setting?
Well, that, but we had a house. It was almost like this guy wrote this story off of this house. There was a house around the block from me that it was almost dead on just like it. It was, I remember it was hilarious. The sidewalk, you would go like 6 houses down, the sidewalk's fine. Sidewalk's fine. And then as soon as the sidewalk got in front of that house, it was like where the slabs of cement were like pushed up toward each other. So they formed like a pyramid, and like it was like broken chunks. The yard was all dead. The tree was dead. The house, like all the paint was like all dried off of it. There was a dead tree up in that expand over the driveway, and there was hanging down from it this string with a triangle like crystal. And it was this big thing where we would dare each other to walk up the driveway, which would put you like right at the house to touch it. And as like real little kids, like there was all these like urban legends, like if you touched it, that's another thing. We called her the witch. She was this lady. I mean, now I can look at it through adult eyes and say, you know, she obviously had some mental problems. She had like the shakes, and she would talk to herself. And when she would ride, she would sometimes come out and ride on her bike, and we would like taunt her. I'm ashamed to say, witch. And anyway, there was this urban legend that if you touch the crystal, that like I don't know, I can't remember exactly what, she would turn you into something. I don't remember what anymore. And there was all these urban legends about.
Interesting.
There was like all these. I mean, ridiculous. I mean, there sounds so kiddie now, but like. That she chased kids with lawnmowers, and like how she would chop them up and she would put them in the microwave and eat them. And, I mean, there was just all these stories. But I heard that some like older kids once messed with her and they set her porch on fire.
Oh no,
that's terrible.
But yeah. I mean, as a kid, it was kind of scary, but kind of exciting. And I remember one time she came out of a store and she was talking, and I thought she was actually talking to me. And I actually rode my bike beside her for a little bit, trying to figure out if she was saying something to me. But then I realized she was just talking like to herself, I guess.
It's a good thing she didn't have a lawnmower.
Yeah.
Did she spend the winter nights salting the sidewalks?
I was just thinking of that too.
I don't know.
Like the old man from Home Alone. He's perfectly harmless, but everybody's afraid of him.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, yeah, not just the suburban, small town feel of it, but specifically that, like, I think it reminded me of my childhood.
I kind of wonder if this house is still standing there or not.
The last time I drove by it, it looks clearly like new owners have it because it's much more put together. The grass is good. But I mean, it was literally just like it. You could go, like I said, I mean, the grass next door, fine. Grass next to that, fine. And all of a sudden her grass, dead. Tree, dead. Sidewalk, all jacked up. The house, like, I mean, just like the Klopek house. I mean,
stepped onto her property, the wind would blow real hard.
Yeah, it was crazy. It was crazy.
So, the real question now I'm thinking is, so we've been able to determine who introduced who to this movie in this group, but I'm trying to remember who introduced it to me.
Well, it wasn't your family?
I think it was Brandon's cousin.
I can't remember.
It's a paradox.
I do think it was my cousin.
Eagle River?
In Eagle River. That's where he showed it to you. Yeah, I think a lot of us when we were kids all had like that one creepy house on the block or in the neighborhood. There was one in my neighborhood where we didn't really have the stories about it. Like we all said it was cursed because it seemed like nobody would live there longer than a year. They'd all sell it, and there'd be new neighbors all the time. But I don't remember a house that was like so run down or anything like that. That's pretty funny that you had that in your neighborhood.
Yeah,
I never had anything like that in my neighborhood.
Well, Dave was talking about how at the beginning of the movie, the way they're acting around the house, that reminds him of his house. And then, Josh says, obviously, that the Klopek's house reminds him of the witch's house that was on his block when he was growing up. But I just find that the actions, the way everybody kind of acts at the start of this movie, just that typical neighborhood thing. Yet at the same time, it's not like Leave It to Beaver or Dennis the Menace where everybody's perfect. Like people are kind of like, oh, what's going on over there down the street at so and so's house? Like that's, to me, I can relate to that. You know, you see something that's not the same way as it is every other day of the week happening at the neighbor's house down the street, and it's like, I wonder what's going on over there. Or somebody's outside outside on the sidewalk in front of your house, and it's like, I wonder what they're out there for. It's like, of course, can't they just be taking a walk? But that's just how people are. And eventually at the end of this movie, it gets to it where Tom Hanks is like, we're the lunatics, we're the ones who are crazy. This is madness, and it's just the madness that comes from suburban life.
It's funny, John, you said something about like Leave It to Beaver, and I think it's funny because like right after Tom Hanks, like at the very beginning, he goes outside, he steps across on their property, the wind blows, and then you hear that very creepy, because like they have like a burnout or something, and then you hear them like their tools like tinkering against the metal,
right?
Which is, I think it's pretty creepy to hear that. I don't know why, but it's funny. Then they flash to like daylight. You see the paperboy coming down the street. It's more pleasant music, and it's almost like just flipping it over on the other side of the coin, and this very idyllic looking, little small town. Everything's nice and bright and colorful and happy and more pleasant. I don't know. It's just funny to me how they flip it so quick.
Yeah, one of the things like you're talking about, John, like how people are all kind of like spying on each other when they live in neighborhoods like that. One of the first things that they talk about in the movie is Art comes over and he's talking about how he never sees anybody go in or come out. Like, how do they get groceries? He says, "What do you think they're eating over there?"
Yeah,
pretty much what you're saying.
Absolutely. It's just anything, because suburban life is so mundane that even the littlest thing out of the ordinary will be like, I wonder what's going on. What's that? Why is that car there? Whose car is that in the driveway? 3 doors down.
I gotta say, I grew up in suburban life as well, and I didn't have any experiences like this movie. I never really paid attention to what was going on in the houses around me. Like I lived in my house. I would see what was going on, but I never really thought much of it. And if there was something unusual going on, I never thought much of it either. So I don't know. So
one of the things I like about this movie, like we've all grown up in suburban areas, and Dave grew up in Pleasantville. Like the movie like has that feeling to me. Like I don't know if it would hold up as well today with the younger audience, because it reminds me of summertime when you're a kid and you wake up early in the morning and the sun is coming up and it's a super nice day and you just go outside and find something to do. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like nowadays kids just first thing they do is pop on their phone or their iPad or whatever. But like, yeah, we used to just go out and do things, and our parents, I don't know if they worried too much about us, but we'd roam around the neighborhood and find things to do. And that's what it reminds me of a lot.
Yeah,
like
I remember playing outside all day, and I never came inside unless it was getting dark or raining.
Yeah, just roam around and like go into the woods or, go to whatever friend's house anywhere around the neighborhood.
Yeah.
I guess that's probably where my experience differs, because my wife and I, we talk about this, and she had an experience like what you guys are talking about, whereas my experience growing up suburban life, I spent most of my time indoors. And I went outside if there was like, an event, or if there was like a gathering of kids. But it just, I don't know, maybe it's because I didn't really have that many friends. And the friends I did have, we'd probably just hang out indoors, and do something, or, I don't know. I guess I'm probably starting to sound pathetic at this point. So.
Well, were you playing like an NES?
But yeah, like side scrollers, or I'd be, I was really into artwork, and I would be like drawing, or my mom had a typewriter, and so she'd let me use it, and so I would just come up with stories and type them for hours, or sometimes I would get really crafty and I would make things, or I would be really big into like playing with my own action figures indoors. And then eventually we got a family computer in 1997. That was our first computer, and that was the end of it. I never saw outside again.
Dave's actually never been out of that computer chair since then. They just keep switching the computers out as they update.
Yes, exactly. It's basically like I'm Neo at this point, plugged in.
So, slightly back on track. How is it that the Klopek house and yard went so bad so quickly after 1 month? I don't get that. They said they lived there for a month. You think they're going to do something about that yard? How could it go bad that quickly in the paint, in the trees, and just everything? How did it go so bad so fast?
Who knows if it wasn't that bad before?
Well, they said I think the previous neighbors kept care of everything, didn't they?
Yeah. They these at least the naps weren't semi conversational. They were normal. They mowed their lawn. They had a lawn to mow.
Yeah, I think that's the surrealness of it. Like it has a certain amount of surrealness, I guess. Like when he steps onto the lawn and then all the wind starts blowing and all that stuff. Just like everything bad happens around these people to create that air of like
surrealness.
What's going on over there?
Surrealness, by the way, is better than surfakeness.
Yes. And yeah, I think that's just part of it. Just like trying to make these people as spooky as possible. So like wherever they move, their grass is going to die because they're bad people.
The paint peels off the walls as soon as they step in the door. Yeah. I think you're right, Brandon.
It's just that blend of horror and comedy and fantasy.
That's funny that you said that. I was actually going to say it's the interesting blend of like mystery, horror, and comedy.
Yeah, and the comedy, I think when I was a kid, the comedy was what drew me the most about this movie because I was never really into horror movies myself of any sort. I had no interest in horror movies, especially after I saw Pet Sematary and I had nightmares forever for a long time. But there would be these little things like when Tom Hanks' character is describing what he wants to do for a vacation and he moves his hands around the room and suddenly you hear like the sound effects of some TV show in the background that happened to coincide with the movements that he's making and it sounds like a slide whistle.
I don't remember that at all.
Like he's talking to Carol, his wife, and suddenly he goes, "Yeah, I just want to be lazy, sit around the house, do this," and he goes, "Woo, woo, woo," and you hear. Like
I don't remember that.
Yeah, because there's cartoons on in the background. I remember that part.
Or like, the sound effects of like when they slide the sardine on top of the pretzel into his mouth, and it sounds worse than like a retainer going in or out of someone's mouth. It's terrible.
So I get the impression that Tom Hanks just got some time off of work. Like maybe, I don't know if he maybe earned that time or he was given that time because he was on the verge of a nervous breakdown or something. There's something about the way that Carrie Fisher is nagging him the whole time and the way he's acting where it seems like he's under a lot of stress and he just needs to relax. But he can't for whatever reason. Did you guys catch any of that type of vibe? Like, what do you think was going on with Tom Hanks' character at the beginning of the movie and him being on vacation?
I just assume he had a vacation from work. That's all I ever took it as.
Well, maybe I was reading more into it than
I mean, no, I'm not saying you're not. That's all I ever took it for.
Yeah,
I did pick up on that, Brandon, and I don't think that he was off for any special reason. I don't think they put him off for a leave of absence because of stress. I just think maybe he earned some vacation time, and it was about time because he hadn't had a vacation in forever, and so here he is finally with some vacation time, and he doesn't know what to do with himself.
Dave?
Yeah, that sounds about right. I picked up on that a little bit. Like this guy's, he kind of comes off as this stressed out guy, and he's looking for an out. He's looking for escapism, and he happens to find it next door.
I didn't get any of those things.
I did feel like pretty much like the adults, basically Rumsfeld, Art, and Tom Hanks' character. What was Tom Hanks' character's name?
Ray Peterson.
Ray, yes. So Ray, Art, and Rumsfeld were kind of like, even though they were the adults in the movie, they were actually the kids of the movie, and they were kind of going on like a kid-like adventure trying to figure out what was going on with the neighbors.
And by the way, to expound on that point, there was literally a scene where they were like, "Can Ray come out, please?" Just like very childish. And,
yeah, that scene really emphasizes that.
She's like, "I've given you my answer," and they show Rumsfeld kind of like kick the ground and pout and walk away, and you notice like the one character's like overly kiddish socks are large and like knee high and pulled all the way up, and they just look like they all they need is like a lollipop, like an overly sized lollipop, and they would look like giant kids.
I remember watching this one time with Tiffany who had never seen it before. And basically, Art, he talks about how his wife is going to see her mother. So basically, he's home alone. And I, as a guy, I never noticed this, but she was pointing out how he's mismatched always. When he's basically basically his wife has to lay out his clothes for him, because like when he's on his own, like nothing matches. Like he would wear like, you know, stripes shirts and then like plaid pants and knee-high socks and flip-flops. Like, again, something I would have never noticed on my own, but she noticed it. I remember that. And then I see it all the time when I watch it, how, you know.
Yeah, you definitely get the sense that he depends on his wife, but at the same time, like, he wants to escape from her. And as soon as she's gone, he's like, all right, I can be free. I get to go on this little adventure and hang with the boys and stuff. And while she's there, he probably doesn't get to do any of that. Even at the beginning of the movie, even though she's gone, he's still trying to do things for her by getting rid of those crows.
Right.
What do you think, John?
I have no thought on the matter.
Well, it's funny you said getting rid of the crows, and I immediately thought of what that would sound like with food shoved all in your mouth. Like in the scene where he's like, you got crows in your bird feeder.
So, you know, this movie, if you take away the lighthearted musical cues and the jokes, this could basically be a thriller.
Absolutely. I was thinking about that too. The vibe of this movie, and Dave sort of touched on this when he was talking about how, you know, he thinks he liked it because of the comedy. He was never into horror, but it does have a horror aspect. It's like just the you know, enough horror for him to be able to say that. You know, but there's so much of the other lighthearted stuff. It's almost like a
diet horror.
A diet horror, yes, something like
diet thriller.
Yeah.
Yes.
See, and I always liked the thriller mystery aspect of it. I always wanted to know what they were doing and why, and you know how, and all that stuff. But
I would consider it one of the movies that borrows slightly from Rear Window.
No, yeah, I could definitely see that. Absolutely.
I would agree.
But speaking to that point about basically this would be a thriller if they took away that stuff, they basically remade this movie as a thriller, which was Disturbia. It was basically a serious remake of it.
That's another one that I've heard compared to Rear Window quite often. I haven't seen it.
Disturbia is basically, it's Shia LaBeouf, but basically it's where he gets in trouble. He's under house arrest, so he has to wear like the ankle monitor where he can only, you know, go in his front yard to a certain extent in his backyard. And basically, while he's stuck in his room with nothing to do during summer, this new neighbor moves in like across the street, and he starts noticing weird things with this guy, like, you know, just very suspicious stuff, like pulling something out of the trunk and carrying it, you know, into the house, and just weird stuff like that, coming out at night and doing stuff. And it's basically kind of like Rear Window, and it's kind of like The Burbs, where he starts figuring that this guy is killing people.
I've never seen the movie, so that's fascinating to know.
Now, I don't know. I've only seen it the one time back when it came out. I liked it, and I think I liked it because I liked The Burbs so much.
I have to check that out sometime.
Yeah, Disturbia.
I think the reason I avoided it was because it's a Shia LaBeouf movie.
That's a good reason to avoid it, I think.
Yeah, I mean, he is what he is. I mean, whatevs. I don't know.
So we're talking a little bit about the tone of the movie and like the surrealness of it, and how that lends itself to like the comedy nature of it. One of my favorite scenes in the movie right at the beginning is when they're daring each other to go up and knock on the neighbor's door.
Mm-hmm.
And they go up there. Does Art bust a hole into the porch right away?
The first time he does, yeah.
Yeah, so they walk up and his foot goes through the porch, like, oh, that's bad luck. Then they knock. The first knock changes the address from 966 to 666, or it was 669, I think.
669.
Yeah, 669 to 666.
And then they changed it to 666, like, oh, that's a bad sign, so that's 2 in a row. Then they knock some more. The address just falls off, and then there's the beehive behind it, and they get attacked by the bees, and they have to run over to Rumsfeld with this tiny hose to get the bees off of them. It's a great scene that really, like, you can laugh pretty hard at, and then, you know, it gets them all to really wonder what's going on over there because it's all these bad signs and bad omens.
Oh,
It's the tone of the film. Yeah. Go ahead.
I like the scene right before that where, you know, it's like, you know, why don't you go up, or are you chicken? And then like it's finally time to do it, and as they start walking, it's the dun 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 dun, and like the zoom into everybody's eyes. Oh, yeah. Like I like that scene.
That moment of truth music.
Yes, right. And like Tom has this serious face as he just keeps walking forward, and it's almost like Art realizes what's happening, and he's looking around like, well, the wind's picked up, what's going on, like, you know, like Like something just kicked up here. So what I found interesting, if you really look at the movie, they never leave the cul-de-sac. All the action takes place on that street. And in that way, it's almost like a play that takes place. Obviously, a play takes place on a stage. Like nothing ever happens outside of that world. Like basically they are cut off from the rest of the world. It have you guys ever seen, Brandon, I'm guessing you probably have, the Twilight Zone episode where the people, there's like a clown, a soldier, a ballerina, and I can't remember the other ones, but basically they're in this like large tubular room.
That one doesn't sound familiar to me.
Oh, okay. Well, anyway, in television terminology, this would be called a bottle episode. A bottle episode is an episode of a TV show where, to save money, as opposed to sending the actors, the cast and crew, everyone to a location or building a set, they will try to do a cheap one where they'll use existing sets they have and just have like in Star Trek, there was the episode where like Picard gets stuck in the elevator because there was a big disaster that the turbo lift was stuck. Like basically they don't pretty much leave that place the whole time, and it saves money. And I'm not saying they were doing that for this movie, but just the fact that the whole movie takes place on this one cul-de-sac, it's almost like a bottle movie. I just think that's interesting.
Well, doesn't that kind of go back to what Brandon was saying, or maybe it was you, but I think it was Brandon said that it was like inspired by Rear Window in that way.
Yeah, I mean, I guess
that would be another example, yeah, because the entire movie takes place in an apartment.
Yeah. I just thought it was interesting. Like, basically, if you really think about enough, they never leave. Well, they might leave, but you don't see where they go.
Yeah.
Like, Carol, I think, goes somewhere, and she comes back, but you never follow her off the street.
And obviously, Walter goes to the hospital.
Right, yeah.
I think the closest they get to actually leaving is when they're talking about their own little urban legend,
yeah, they talk about things, but I'm saying they never leave the street. Or if they leave the street, we never follow and see where they go.
There's actually, I think, one or two houses that we don't know who lives there, and it's just the neighbors never come out. They never talk about them. So it's only like 5 out of the 7 houses are involved in this movie.
Yeah.
So I always wondered who lived in those other houses. And
if you go to Wikipedia, somebody actually took the time to draw a map of the cul-de-sac with the addresses and whose house is what.
Oh, okay, that's cool.
Yeah.
There's more than just that to it, though. There's a little thing about actually who lives. It's one house that you never see who lives there, and I can't remember the tale. It's they say their last name is Fennel, which is a reference to a producer, Michael Fennel, and it's seen on the side of a Chevy Astrovan as Fennel Plumbing, and they also have a Buick sedan, and are presumably are visible at the end of the movie near Walter's house after the explosion.
Whoa, John busting out some trivia there. That's crazy. I didn't notice any of that.
Oh, and here's some more trivia that you may not know about. The crazy redhead Josh-looking character is the same actor who was in Back to the Future, who was dancing at the...
Scram, McFly, I'm cutting in.
That's him. And yes, I did... Again, he does look like a redhead ginger Josh.
I don't see it at all.
Well, if we're all gonna bust out some trivia, the old man, Walter, was he was known for being one of the Mr. Wilsons on Dennis the Menace, but I also remember him from the Lucy Show.
Yep.
Which was a show that featured Lucille Ball after I Love Lucy.
He was on so many things. I think he was even on Bewitched at some point.
Yeah, and I Love Lucy, but in the Lucy Show, he was Mr. Mooney. And while they're going through Walter's house after they're wondering what happened to him, there's actually pictures of Lucy up on like the TV or on the mantle somewhere.
I saw that. I was like, oh my gosh. There it is.
Another thing about that, the actor that plays Walter is along with the brother Theodore, this is that actor's last role.
Wait, say that again?
The actor that played Walter that we were talking about, it's his last role, along with brother Theodore, who played one of the Klopeks.
Really?
Yeah.
This was their last movie, huh?
Yes, sir.
It looks like Gale Gordon.
That's his name, yep. Walter's name.
When did he die?
1995.
Okay.
Well, this movie was what, 88, 89?
89.
Okay.
Another thing, too, about the, as long as we're talking about trivia right here, this is the second or one of 2 Tom Hanks movies to come out in 89. The other one being Turner and Hooch, which was actually a movie that I loved as a kid. I came to knowing the Burbs quite a bit later. So just kind of fascinating there that I have fallen in love with two movies of Tom Hanks from the year 1989.
So, I find it funny how once they dump that trash in the street, it stays there for the entire
I did notice
duration
that.
of the movie, and people keep like running over it, but no one really acknowledges it after that. It's just the elephant in the room. It's just something there, but we don't talk about it or almost don't even notice it.
That was
I've noticed
hilarious
that.
because they come out and the one trash man is like the only guy that has any sense out of the whole group of them. All the neighbors are running into the the truck and the garbage truck, throwing the trash everywhere. And he's like, "What are you doing?" And Robert Picardo, the other garbage man, is like, "Hey, they have a right. Once it hits the curb, it's public domain. You have a right to know." And this guy's like, "Who's going to pick this stuff up?" And Rumsfeld like, "You are. You're the garbage man." And nobody picks it up. It just stays there the whole movie.
That's so funny.
We'll
because
never
at that
know.
point it'd be considered litter.
That's very true.
I imagine that was on their list of charges after they got arrested.
No doubt.
Oh, and speaking of the scene where they get arrested, the guy who plays the police officer is Terrence Howard, right? Not Terrence Howard.
Rance Howard,
Rance Howard.
the star pupil of Independence Day, the
Yeah.
greatest actor of our time.
And that's
Howard.
Ron Howard's father?
Yep.
Ron Howard's father and Bryce Dallas Howard's grandfather.
Yeah.
And he's been in tons of movies. I really am. I mean, like, I guess I'm like this closet fan of him, like fanatic. Really, I just like him so much. He's great.
I don't know how much stuff I've seen him in, but I am aware of him. One of the things I noticed when me and John were rewatching it, and I made a little note here that I thought was pretty funny, is just a little thing. The movie takes place over a period of several days, like 2 or 3 days, and I noticed that every time in the morning when people wake up, immediately they have perfect hair. I just thought that was really funny.
That's Hollywood for you.
I almost felt like they kind of made a joke out of it because, like, especially Rumsfeld's wife, his little trophy wife, she would come out with like the perfect hair, and she still had like her robe on and everything. The only one that didn't have perfect hair was Walter because he wore a toupee. So I guess his hair was kind of perfect already. It just wasn't on his head.
Well, even his hair didn't stay perfect because it was constantly getting tussled about.
It was off of his head for most of the movie.
Don't let them do to you what they did to me.
One of the better dream sequences I've seen.
Oh yes.
Now I wanted to talk about the the coming together. These guys finally they come together and make a plan. And here's Rumsfeld with his walkie-talkies, and then the other two are off doing the deed. That whole bit reminds me of me and Josh and Dave when we were growing up, because Josh was real big on doing stuff like that with walkie-talkies, and we would have these little missions we would go on, and I don't know, that just reminds me of my childhood right there.
Yeah, that's like more of them acting like kids when they're playing with the walkie-talkies, and Rumsfeld always has some kind of toy he's trying to goof around with.
Yeah, and sometimes that toy is a military rifle.
Or the thing he used to cut a hole in the glass.
Yeah. He always had some kind of gizmo he wanted to use or play with.
A soldier's way wins the day.
Do you remember what I called that, John? What did I call sneaking around?
Rumsfelding it?
No.
What?
Stealthing.
Yes, stealthing.
Yes, and you always used to refer to me as Gray Squirrel.
Bullfrog, gray squirrel, and eagle eye. Yep, we all
right.
had code names.
That's right.
Moose and
I remember
squirrel.
my walkie-talkies had like these modified antennas with tinfoil satellite-looking things on them.
Yep. Yeah, I remember that.
Walkie-talkies or two-way radios seem to be kind of like a staple of children in 80s films.
Yep.
Even in Stranger Things, they were using walkie-talkies.
I was just going to bring that up, too. Yeah. Another thing, too, is to go back to Rumsfeld, that character, I think he's absolutely hilarious. He brings a lot of the comic relief in his little sarcastic remarks that he makes. He just cracks me up.
Let me ask you guys a question about the wallpaper scene. What do you think he was trying to do? I have a theory now, but for years I never could figure out what exactly he was doing. What do you guys think he was doing?
Dave?
I I never really thought much of it. I mean, I've been in. I mean, I can totally relate to the situation of being somewhere and seeing a little thing like a loose thread or a piece of something and pulling
So
on
it's
it.
almost like
And
just an itch.
oh, it's kind of like, yeah, like if I'm wearing a shirt that's got a string that's like loose, if I pull it to try to remove it and it just
Yeah.
keeps pulling and pulling, and oh crap, I've just unraveled the whole shirt.
Yeah. But no theory of what you think why he did that besides
I never
John?
really thought much about it beyond that.
Yeah,
John?
maybe looking for a like a little hole to peek through and see what he could see
Okay.
behind the wallpaper.
Brandon?
I got the impression that he was just standing there kind of listening to them and was distracted by the wallpaper and was just kind of playing with it.
Okay.
And like to the point where he didn't even realize he was ripping it at first. And once he did, he's like, oh crap, and tried to put it back.
Yeah,
He
almost like,
did. He
almost,
tried to put it back. That kills me.
almost
Yeah.
like a release of nervous energy.
Okay.
Yeah, I didn't put too much thought into it other than that. I guess he could have been looking for something.
I think Josh is going to tell us what his master idea was.
I suspect he was looking for blood stains from where they might have killed somebody, bludgeoned them, stabbed them, blood went on the wall, and they put wallpaper up to try to cover the blood stains. That's what I think.
Could be.
That is very possible.
Anyway, I was just wondering if you guys had any theories on that.
He does kind of act like, oh crap, I just tore off a whole bunch of their wallpaper, and then like as if to say he didn't mean to.
Well, again, because I think he was hoping to maybe see something that would give him some more evidence of what they were doing, and then once he didn't see anything, he kind of had to,
Right.
Yeah, regardless of his intention, he didn't realize how much of how much destruction he had caused until it was too late.
Correct.
I have something written in my notes here, and I it was a couple weeks ago that we watched this. When they tell the urban legend about Skip, and we were talking about urban legends earlier with like Josh and his witch. Skip the killer, the ice cream man that killed his family and kept him in the basement. Did Art say that he lived over on Elm?
I believe so.
Yeah.
I think that's something
that
that
a
comes
Freddy
up a lot too. There's a lot of Elm Streets that pop up in horror movies and stuff, and not even all of them are on purpose. Like
I think we had an Elm Street over where I was at, in Lincoln Park, I thought.
There is an Elm
Probably,
Street over
because-
there.
Probably because there's one in Wyandotte, and Lincoln Park and Wyandotte share a border, I believe.
Yeah, it's
Do they?
funny that it pops up in horror movies a lot. I mean, I'm sure it's a common street name. There's got to be an Elm Street in like every city across America. But it got me thinking. That's pretty funny that they mentioned Elm Street for the serial killer that killed his family. There's another movie that I think I mentioned it to you before, Josh. It's called Saturday the 14th.
Oh, yes, yeah.
And it came out before A Nightmare on Elm Street. And they actually, I believe that the street that they lived on in that movie was Elm Street. And the house across the street was the house that the girl lived in on A Nightmare on Elm Street. So I thought that was kind of funny.
Yeah.
Just a coincidence.
So, did you notice toward the end of the movie when they arrest Dr. Klopek, you see that Hans is trying to get away and Rumsfeld like grabs him. So basically they got him, but they never showed them apprehend Reuben, Uncle Reuben.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously I trust that they got him, but I just wonder why they didn't show any scene of them apprehend him.
I'm just wondering if maybe it's because he was an old man and, not very able to run or whatever to try to get away. It was almost pointless for him to try to get away.
He wasn't as involved in the final scenes, I think, because they had, Hans was the driver for the ambulance that was trying to escape, and the doctor was trying to kill Tom Hanks. And after the ambulance crashed, Hans is out there kind of dazed, stumbling around, trying to get away. Maybe because he wasn't as involved with that scene, they didn't feel like they had to show him.
I personally think I wish they would have showed something. Just, I don't know, just the final scene, because the last thing I think they showed was, okay, Hepcats, get off my car.
Yeah.
But another thing, what was really their motivation? I never understood, like, why did they kill people? What was the point? How did they get these people if they never hardly left the house? Like, they weren't like luring the people to their house for some other. How were they getting a hold of these people to even kill them?
It sounded like they were moving from place to place.
And they just took their collection with them?
Maybe. I mean, obviously they were deranged. They were like kind of almost like the crazy family from Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Like all of them were nuts.
A bunch of sociopaths.
Yeah, and
So what? They killed them. They would burn their bodies and keep the skeletons.
something like that. I know they were going from house to house. Maybe they're trying to like stay on the move so they wouldn't get caught. And then instead of having to deal with like any paperwork or leave a trail, they would just wipe out the family and take over the house.
So when they were burying them in the backyard, where Ray sees them at night, that's because the furnace had a malfunction and they had to get rid of it.
I don't know exactly what was going on there.
I almost wondered if they weren't trying to hide the bones at that time, because at that time they knew that people were watching them, were getting suspicious, so maybe they were back there trying to hide the bones that they had, and then obviously at some point they dug the bones up.
Well,
See,
okay,
go ahead.
let's talk about that furnace for a second. Obviously, that wasn't the furnace that whoever lived there before had. Like,
Right.
that was something that the Klopex installed. I'm wondering if maybe... Do you remember the name of the family? I'm sorry.
The Naps.
Yep.
The Naps.
Yes, it was the Naps.
Okay, so maybe they killed the Naps, buried the Naps until they can get that furnace going, and then once they got that furnace going, they dug them back up and threw them in.
Well,
Okay.
they I thought they moved away because the moving van was parked outside all day.
No, they died.
Well, okay, and here's another thing. Like, why would they throw away the body in the trash? Why not just bury it?
Well, we don't know if they actually did that. They never got through the trash, or the trash that they did go through was normal.
That was one of those things that I think that was more like, to show that the neighbors, the
We're trying to find creepy stuff.
yeah, the suburbanites were reading way too much into things like the garbage.
Well, see, I don't know. I disagree. I think because remember the next day when they dig through the trash and there's not a nose, not a finger, not nothing, and then they come up with this theory that the old guy must have spotted us last night. They came out when we were asleep and they dug up took the body out of the trash, and then he said they buried him in the backyard because that's when Ray sees them at that night burying them in the backyard. It starts to rain right after he pulls the car back into the garage.
Yeah, you have a point there. That did happen because then when he's looking out the window, he saw them all digging in the backyard. I'm still wondering
The
if
furnace
maybe
goes down. They try to throw it away. They realize they get caught, and then they bury him in the backyard until
That
the
could
furnace
be.
is fixed.
they leave it kind of open, I suppose, for you to wonder about. I think it's part of the mystery of what is going on next door.
Going back to the furnace for just a second, it actually I think was the original furnace, but they made the statement that there had been modifications. Once Ray and Art were downstairs and they were checking things out, Art says, "Ray, look at the size of this furnace. The thing's got to be 80 years old. What does somebody need a furnace like this for? I think there's been some modifications on this because this conduit's brand new." And then he says, and a thermostat on a home furnace, is that supposed to go to 5,000 degrees, do you think?
Well, I think it was a crematorium furnace. I think it was specifically probably a furnace that would be used to cremate bodies that they took and modified themselves personally.
Oh, okay.
I don't think it was the original furnace of the house. I think...
Yeah, I'm wondering if maybe...
Because it had the big door. Remember the big door that the flame shot out and he kicked it shut?
that was something that they would take with them from house to house, and it was basically, yeah, like you're saying, more of an incinerator than a furnace. The ending zoomed out, just the way the movie began was exactly the way the movie ended.
Yeah. It bookended it real nice, yeah.
Mm-hmm. So we started with a zoom in, and we ended with a zoom out.
That's cool. Yeah, they do a good job, like, just jumping back and forth between those two, you know.
Oh, and I'll say another funny part that I really like was the cop when he's like, "Is this your car, Dr. Klopik?" He pronounces their name wrong, Dr. Klopik. And crickets.
No, I did notice that he said it funny. I never thought any more of it, but it's kind of like the tomato thing.
It's a great movie.
So, we pretty well talked about this movie. Most of it, covered everything we wanted to cover. Dave, who's your favorite character in the film?
My favorite character? I've never thought about that. I mean, I think maybe Bruce Dern's character. He's really funny. I just think he's a really funny character.
Yeah, I would agree with. I think I'm going to have to go with Dave here. For me, and I gave this away a little bit earlier, but Bruce Dern's character, Rumsfeld, absolutely cracks me up. He might make the movie for me. I mean, I'm sure, it probably still would have been a good movie otherwise. But to me, Rumsfeld, is he's the linchpin that makes this movie pretty much what it is for me.
Yeah, I like all the characters. I think everybody did a pretty good job with the acting. There isn't really anybody that stands out as bad to me. They're all great, but if I had to pick just one, I think probably Ricky Butler would be the one that I thought was the funniest. Just this butthead teenage kid from the 80s who's just enjoying watching his neighbors' antics. I thought that was pretty funny.
Pizza dude.
Josh, how about you? Who's your favorite character?
I find it hard to choose between Art and Mark. They're both pretty funny, have a lot of memorable scenes and lines, but I don't know, maybe Art was probably the funniest to me, but there was a lot that Mark did that was pretty funny too. So I don't know, I guess Art.
All right. Yeah, that's cool. Letter grade time. Josh?
Whew, gee. Oh, man. Maybe a B?
All right.
I would say a B as well.
Brandon?
You know what? There's not a lot to not like about this movie. It's got a good little blend of horror and comedy. All the acting's done really well, especially Tom Hanks. I mean, I think I might give it I might give it an A.
Yeah, you know,
I will say that most of my likeness for this movie stems from my childhood from watching it. I don't know if I would like this movie as much as I do had I not grown up watching it. If I was introduced to it in the last 5 or 10 years, I'd probably be like, meh, whatever.
Yeah, I can't say that for me. It had been quite a while up until last year before I had watched The Burbs again. And then I think it was around Halloween last year. When I say last year, I should say 2015. When I went back and I finally rewatched The Burbs, and it was just absolutely fantastic to go back and see it again anew. And it was still really fresh. It really held up over time. I was shocked to learn that it didn't get such good reviews when it first came out. I'm gonna have to at least give it a solid B+.
I did notice, like, when we were rewatching it, John, like, it almost became hard to take notes because I started to get so into the movie and I start cracking up. And then whenever I did notice something, like, I kept blurting things out to you, like, oh, did you see that? Did you see that? You know, before we do the podcast. It's a movie that, for me, holds up. I'm always super into it, and it's good enough to keep my full attention the entire time.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think that says a lot.
I think they should re-release it in theaters with special edition, special effects, and make prequels and sequels.
Well, it wasn't directed by George Lucas. Josh, no, you said on Metacritic it has like a 40.
Yeah. Was it 41? Something like that.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah, I was looking at...
that's the Rotten Tomatoes, I'm sorry.
I was looking at Roger Ebert.
48. I stand corrected. I'm sorry, 48 on Rotten Tomatoes. Sorry, John.
No, that's all right. Roger Ebert gave it 2 stars, and I'll just read you a little bit here what he said. He said, "The Burbs tries to position itself somewhere between Beetlejuice and The Twilight Zone, but it lacks the dementia of the first and the wicked intelligence of the second, and turns instead into a long, shaggy dog story."
All right.
Interesting terminology.
So, yeah, I mean, I was shocked to see that it wasn't quite as beloved by the critics back when it first came out. But what do the critics know? They usually get it wrong anyway.
That's probably a good spot to stop it.
Yeah, that probably wraps up our work here on The Burbs.
Well, that's where we're going to wrap it up. You can get us on iTunes by searching the Escape Podcast.
You can find us on Facebook at facebook.com/escapepodcast16.
You can write to us at escapepodcast16@gmail.com.
And you can find us on Podomatic at escapepodcast16.
Well, thanks for tuning in. Until next week, this is Ray Peterson.
I'm Art Weingardner.
Lieutenant Mark Rumsfeld.
Ricky Butler. I love this neighborhood.
And we'll see you next week.
Pizza dude.
Anybody that listens to our recent episode about the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen knows that I have a huge old man crush on Sean Connery. And another one of the actors that I have a huge old man crush on is Robert Duvall, and he plays a significant role in the Gone in 60 Seconds movie.
Of all the ways you could have phrased that.
Yes, just so you know, if any old men are listening, we will give out John's email address at the end of the show.
Oh, yeah.
Yes. And I will put out a list of all the different nursing homes John lives near.
That's right.
Or that he's banned from.
But beware, old men, because you might have to fight for my affection with gas station attendants.
Oh boy, we're going way off the deep end here.